What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. My name is Dan Kornhauser.
And I'm Sam Teets.
And we want to thank you guys for tuning in to another edition of the NFL Draft Show here on the Grueling Truth Network. And we are brought to you by betting.net, your best bet for online sportsbook and casino sites. So head on over to betting.net. Now, Sam, we've got a lot going on. This is going to be a jam-packed show. We're going to try to fit all this into like under an hour, preferably. So strap in, guys, because it's going to be a ride. It is Mock Draft Monday. It is January 31st. The Senior Bowl is this week. Mock Draft Monday's today. Sam just released his big board. There's all sorts of crazy things going on. Sam, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's get right into it. We got a lot to cover today.
All right. So you know what? Let's start from the top because we got a lot of stuff to go down. Let's start with, first off, your pre-Senior Bowl big board. Your top 300. You just released it. And I haven't had an opportunity to look through it fully. But why don't you break some stuff down for me real quick? Why don't you tell me what's one of the biggest movers up your board from your last big board that you put out?
Yeah, a bunch of guys jumped up my big board this time around. I think it's because I have to dig into a lot of the, I don't want to say smaller school guys, but guys who are not at the forefront of this draft class. And also because we actually, last time I released my big board was back in December. We didn't know who was actually going to the NFL draft. And so I had to cut about 30 names off the list, which was a painstaking process that took far too long. I'm just looking through my big board now, trying to find some names that jumped out to me as guys who moved up the board overall. And frankly, it's a lot of names that I'm kind of sad didn't go to the draft. I would have loved to have seen a lot of these guys come out because I think their stock was really high. Someone like Amari Barno jump up a few spots for me. He's an edge rusher from Virginia Tech, a little bit undersized, in my opinion, which does worry me a little bit. But I do like him quite a bit. He was one of the guys that I found early in the year. I forget who they were playing against. It might have been – I forget who they played early on in the year. It was North Carolina, and he really showed out in that game. That was a huge outing for him. I was very impressed with what he was capable of doing in that one. And he kind of trailed off, unfortunately, a little bit later on in the year. But that was a huge game for me. Jaquan McMillan, a cornerback at 163 on this board from East Carolina. He's a small dude. He's going to be a slot corner in the NFL. But he's going to be a damn good slot. And right now, the way the NFL's played, it's played in sub-package. You have slot corners on the field for 700-plus snaps a year. And someone like Jaquan McMillan is going to be a very good slot corner in the NFL. And that's something that, again, you don't find on these boards until you start looking at these like all-star game rosters for the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Bowl, and some of these guys start popping out. But you want to see like a name that everyone's more familiar with who jumped up board quite a bit. Someone like Mario Goodrich from my alma mater, Clemson. I had him at 209 on my big board last time around. He's up to 88. And Mario Goodrich really helped himself out this year. Bowl season was a playmaker in the Cheez It Bowl for Clemson. Had two of the biggest plays of the game. And the more I look at him, the more I fall in love with him. I think I actually have him as cornerback 10 now on my big board. Previously, I had him nowhere near that high. But looking at the way he's played so far, I really like him. I think he's going to fall into the same kind of classification or the same general rank as guys like Darion Kendrick and Kobe Bryant.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm actually looking over your board while you were talking there, and I noticed some interesting stuff at the quarterback position. Now, you don't have any in your top two tiers, but you do have three in that tier 3 top 50 prospects area. What makes this quarterback class so interesting to you? Because I see Kenny Pickett is at 25th. Matt Corral is your QB2 at 36. Sam Howell's your QB3 at 42. Do you really only see those three quarterbacks as the top of the class?
Yeah, I do. And I have to preface this by saying that I don't include positional value in my big boards. I know some places do. If we had included positional value, Kenny Pickett would have absolutely been higher, along with Corral and Sam Howell. But basing it purely on talent, Kenny Pickett to me is a solid quarterback. He's a good quarterback. He had a really good year this year. And frankly, taking into account how Bryce Young played in the college football playoffs, Kenny Pickett might have been actually the best quarterback in college football this year in terms of just a pure play style. He's at 25 for me. And the reason he's down there is I don't think he's the kind of QB who can come in and be the savior of a franchise. Like if you're Carolina and mean, you're drafting Kenny Pickett with the hopes of turning your franchise around, being able to compete with the Saints and the Buccaneers, who may or may not have Tom Brady next year. Who knows? But if you're hoping to compete with those franchises and have Kenny Pickett be your savior, that just isn't going to happen. Like, to me, Kenny Pickett is a good, solid quarterback who's going to be right around the middle of probably the QB market in his first 2 or 3 years. I envision him a similar way to like Matt Corral in the sense that he's going to not necessarily be as much of a game manager as Matt Corral. But my ideal ceiling for someone like Kenny Pickett is probably Derek Carr. Derek Carr's a good quarterback, don't get me wrong. But it's not like you see the Las Vegas Raiders going out there and winning a bunch of playoff games. You know, it's a tough case because Kenny Pickett, again, a team like Carolina, Kenny Pickett would be better than any QB you have. But if you're going to use like the 6th overall pick on Kenny Pickett, you have to understand you're not going to be making a Super Bowl necessarily in the next couple of years. That's not going to change your franchise so much that you're going to be able to turn around unless you build the team around him quite a bit. So I am a little bit worried about this whole QB class in general because I don't think there's an elite QB like a Joe Burrow or a Justin Herbert. There's no one like that in this class.
Now, as I continue to look over your big board, I did notice something very interesting to me. And I noticed in your tier 5, your locked in third rounders that you rank between number 74 and number 96. You have a few Georgia defenders a bit lower than I've seen elsewhere. I see Quay Walker at number 84 overall, Darion Kendrick at 92, Channing Tindall at 96. And I must ask, why do you have these guys down there where this is end of the third round ish? Those guys could, in your rankings, they could very well fall to the third, early fourth, mid fourth range, depending on some of these other guys that you have in the 6th tier. Why the Georgia defenders in that spot there, in that range?
So I'll start with Darion Kendrick because he's the guy that I have the most experience with, considering he played at Clemson for a while. My concern is Darion Kendrick, and this happened in the college football playoff. Even though he barely allowed a reception during the playoffs, he got beat a couple of times. And he got bailed out by guys dropping passes, bad quarterback throws. But his issue right now is still the speed. I mean, this guy was going to play zone in the NFL. Zone's not necessarily the most beloved scheme right now. I'd love to see guys able to man up. But that doesn't affect my ranking. I just think that Darion Kendrick is going to bite on routes. He's going to be looking in the backfield, trying to anticipate where the ball is going to go. And this is a converted wide receiver. Like, he knows what he's doing. He's a smart guy on the football field. The issue with me is, again, he gets beat too deep too often. And it's not by Jamison Williams type guys. It's by wide receiver 3s on Michigan and stuff like that. It's not by guys who are going to go out there. If you put him on a real burner in the NFL, like a wide receiver 1 who's got some speed on him, I don't see that ending very well. So that's my concern with Darion Kendrick. I like him a lot. It's just the more that I dig into him, I think the upside for guys like Mario Goodrich is a little bit younger. It's just higher. And someone like Darion Kendrick, there's too many of those plays where, yeah, he didn't get beat on those routes in terms of like the ball actually getting to the receiver, but he's trailing the guy by 3 yards. You know, in the NFL, a QB is going to make that throw. A QB like Patrick Mahomes is going to see that and going to put that ball on a rope for a touchdown. So that's my big concern with Darion Kendrick. In terms of Quay Walker and Channing Tindall, I'm a little bit more concerned about their coverage abilities. I love the ability they have to flow sideline to sideline. They're great at crashing down the running game. And that really fit that Georgia offense quite a bit. And when you have someone like Nakobe Dean, who's a really good coverage specialist at the linebacker level, you can have guys around him who are more focused on the running game. It's okay to do that. The issue is going to be at the NFL level when you don't have a coverage specialist linebacker like Nakobe Dean next to you, which you probably won't. Most teams don't have that kind of guy.
Right.
Then it comes down to, like, where are you playing these guys? Are these guys going to play in a 4-3 front? Are they going to play like a weak side linebacker? Are they going to play as like an interior guy on a 3-4 front? It's hard to tell. And are you going to be able to keep them out there for every down, including like the third and long situations? Or do you have someone you would are specialized coming in to play in those spots? So that's my concern with those, mainly the coverage abilities.
Okay. All right. Now, before we keep going, we do have some comments I do want to share. So we're going to start with Joseph Michael, and he says, "Who day, baby." Who day. Another one. Very enthusiastic. Thank you, Joe. Well, he's talking about the Bengals. That's who they be. And that's your AFC champion right there. We're definitely going to be talking about that later tonight. Mike, myself, Steve, we got an NFL show tonight at 9:00, and it's It's going to be a good one. We're going to go over all the craziness of this weekend. Bengals, Rams, Jimmy being a butt. I'm so excited to go over all of it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a late
one. Mike, if you're in the chat, the Bengals need to stop rolling the ball on first down. Mike, they're getting stopped every time for -1 yards. Every time they run the ball on first down, Mike, they need to throw.
Then I got another one here from Sefton. Sefton's one of our regulars on the Wednesday Pick'em show. And he says, let me put some respect on y'all names. Bless up Dan and Sam. Thank you very much, Sefton. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for showing some love. And just as we mentioned his name, here he is, the man himself, reminding everyone that we got an NFL show at 9 tonight. Sefton, Joe, I hope you guys will tune in. You guys always offer some fun commentary and stuff like that. So hopefully we'll see you guys then. But let's move on from your big board, which I'm going to comb through some more. I'm going to add it to my consensus list and see how it stacks up against some of the other big boards around the net. But we're going to shift gears real quick. We're going to stay on your content, though. And you released a mock draft not too long ago.
Yeah, I did last week on January 23rd. It's a little bit – now I sat down and did the big board. I want to go back and change a lot of stuff, but I still feel pretty confident in a lot of the picks towards the top of this draft and what I made overall. And I feel like there's a lot of good fits in this mock now that we know who is going to the draft and who's actually going back to college.
So looking at it, it's a good read, and I like some of the explanations you gave. The first thing that stuck out to me, though, that third pick, doing it real early. You went with Ike Mekwanyu there, the offensive tackle from NC State, and his stock is rising, and it's rising fast throughout this whole pre-draft process. But third overall?
Yeah, it's interesting because I thought early on in the process this college football season, I saw people saying he was going to play guard. He had to play guard in the NFL. I didn't believe that. And I liked him as a tackle. I didn't love him as being a top 5 pick or anything like that. But the more I look at the way it's playing out right now, these tackles, Evan Neal and Ekwonu, are probably going to be overdrafted. And that's the way I view it right now. They're going to get taken a little bit higher than they should be. These guys are probably good enough to be top 12 selections in my mind. Are they going to be top 5 picks? Probably not. You know, I would have rather had Penei Sewell and probably Rashawn Slater over both of them.
Okay.
But look at the teams up there. I mean, how many people are trying to say Jacksonville should take an offensive tackle at number 1? It's becoming a more popular thing. It doesn't make any sense to me because I don't think it's worth the value. But more people are pushing that. You know, Jacksonville needs a tackle. Houston, they need to have a right tackle because Marcus Cannon's not going to be relevant for that team going forward. And if you're going to have a young quarterback like Davis Mills or someone else come in, you're going to need to have that offensive line set. Because if you don't, you get Zach Wilson, you get Trevor Lawrence, you get that early situation where it's just absolutely horrible. And then you get the New York Jets taking Evan Neal at 4. And again, Zach Wilson didn't have a good rookie year. I think I like what they have so far on some of the building blocks up front. But there's been some issues in the building with Mekhi Becton putting on weight, not necessarily being able to rehab to the best ability. And there's been some concern internally about his future with the Jets. If that's the case, you're probably going to have to take the shot at someone like Evan Neal towards the top of the draft to make sure you at least have one franchise tackle going forward.
Now, you have 3 offensive tackles going in the top 6, with Cross being the third one at number 6 overall and Neal going 4th to the Jets. And I'm looking through here, at least positionally, and I noticed you only had a couple of quarterbacks in the first round as well, with the first one being going number 8 overall to the Falcons and Kenny Pickett, and the next one being Matt Corral, the quarterback from Ole Miss, going number 11 to the Washington football team. One, I remember when I did my mock and I had a quarterback going to the Falcons, Steve shat all over me and verbally abused me, talking about, oh, Matt Ryan still got it in him. What are you doing? They have so many other needs. You dumb. So why would the Falcons go quarterback there, knowing they have so many other needs elsewhere and could afford to take literally anyone on defense or trade back or whatever? But they go quarterback here. Why?
Yeah, I mean, they certainly have opportunities because they are kind of stuck in the death zone right now. Let's be honest. They're going to win 6 or 7 games every year with Matt Ryan. which is not great because, again, you're not competitive. You're not going to the playoffs, and you can't get a top of the draft. You can't get anyone at the top of the draft. So it's kind of a terrible position for them to be in overall as a franchise. The reason why they haven't gone Kenny Pickett here is if you look at who's gone already. Charles Cross, because you might need to upgrade a tackle at some point. Charles Cross is gone. Man, at this point, there's no reason to take a tackle behind that high because everyone else is not worth the top 15 pick at that spot. And George Karlaftis is another guy everyone loves to send to Atlanta, goes right before you at number 7. Value-wise, if you're trying to take the best player available, that'd be Kyle Hamilton, who goes right after that at number 9. But I'm looking at Matt Ryan, and I know people were saying, like, there was this initial storyline that Matt Ryan was in the same class as Ben Roethlisberger at the start of this year. They were both washed up. They were both over the hill. Mm-hmm. And Matt Ryan is certainly not as bad as Ben Roethlisberger this year. I can say as a Steelers fan, he certainly was not at that level. But he wasn't good either. I mean, he threw 20 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. And you can say, well, it's because he doesn't have Julio Jones anymore. The weapons are gone. Calvin Ridley's taking time away from football. And that might be true. But I'm also not taking a wide receiver up here at, what, number 7 overall, number 8 overall. I'm not taking a receiver that high. There's no receiver in this class that deserves to go in the top 12 picks or so. And with Matt Ryan, if we're being really honest, he's been in decline since 2018. Since the start of 2018, he was really good. And since then, he's been going downhill. And you see where this is going. And if you feel like you're going to get stuck in the middle ground again next year, I think taking Kenny Pickett is not a terrible decision because it gives you some versatility. You have the opportunity to trade Matt Ryan if you want to. If you get stuck with the rest of his contract, that's fine. You've got an heir to him who can study a little bit and get some playing reps this year and be your guy going forward. And I don't think it really hamstrings this team either because, frankly, like I said, the top 3 tackles are already gone. The top 3 edge rushers are already gone. Unless you want to take Kyle Hamilton, a safety, which doesn't offer much positional value anyways, I just don't see the point. Taking a quarterback is always going to offer you more positional value. And again, it makes you able to trade Matt Ryan so you can recoup some assets and maybe try to turn this franchise around and get out of the middle ground.
Now, looking down here some more, I wanted to ask 2 more questions before moving on to our next topic and getting to some more comments from our viewers. So are you not buying any of the buzz of wide receivers rising up the board and getting into that like top 10, top 12 range with so many teams up in the top 15 in need of a wide receiver? Are you buying at least from your mock draft, it doesn't look like you're buying that right now.
No, not really, because there's been a trend where you can find some quality receivers in day 2 pretty early on. Think about T. Higgins or Michael Pittman Jr. Elijah Moore didn't get to play a lot this year because of injuries, but he looked pretty good when he was out there for the Jets. You can find quality guys. I mean, A.J. Brown's a second-round pick. DK Metcalf's a second-round pick. You can find those guys on day 2. Now, it's not like every second-round receiver is a hit. It's not that way. But I still think there's a lot of quality guys who will be out there. And taking a receiver in the first round is risky. I mean, there have been a lot of busts in the past couple of years, with the exception of 1 or 2 really elite wide receiver classes. You've had some problems landing receivers in the first round. And so, yeah, the first receiver I have to go off the board in the mock draft is Jamison Williams at 16 to Philadelphia. And then I have the New Orleans Saints taking Drake London at 18, my 2 top receivers by far in this draft. After that, I have to go down to 23, where Arizona gets Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and Jahan Datsun also go in the first round, and so does Treylon Burks at the very end. I think all those guys are going to have good shots at going in the first round, especially I think Burks because of just his pure athleticism and his combination of size and speed. Drake London, assuming the medicals are okay, and Jamison Williams as well, assuming the medicals are okay. Williams with the speed, London with his ability to win contested catch situations and get yards with the catch with his larger frame. It's hard to bring down. Those guys, to me, are all going to be first-round picks. And Datsun, Wilson, a lot of it kind of gets sprinkled in there a little bit depending on what your offense is looking to add at the receiver position. Kind of choose your flavor. But I don't buy any of these guys being top 10 picks. This is not a Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith year.
Okay. Now, one last question before we move on, because it is Mock Draft Monday, and we're talking about your mock draft. We got to get to our own. And I do want to talk about the Senior Bowl, but one last question about your mock. You have Jamison Williams, star wide receiver from Alabama. Like you said, you have him at number 16. We know he tore his ACL in the national championship. doesn't look like it's going to really hurt his stock. Do you think the mid-teens is as high as it goes at this point?
Yeah, I think so. Because in my opinion, he's not as dynamic of a receiver as Tyreek Hill, obviously. He's not as built as Tyreek Hill. We've seen what Tyreek Hill can do the past couple of weeks. He's not that kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
He is more dynamic than someone like Henry Ruggs. And Ruggs was a first-round pick as well. I think Jamison Williams, a little bit less dynamic than Tyreek Hill, maybe a little less dynamic than Jalen Waddle. But still, you've seen guys like Henry Ruggs go in the first round. You've seen guys like Jalen Reagor go in the first round. If those guys can earn first-round selections, then Jamison Williams with one bad ACL is still probably worth a first-round pick compared to those guys. So I'm willing to take the bet here.
And what's the lowest you see Jamison Williams going, assuming all goes well with the ACL recovery and whatnot?
The lowest he can go, I would say maybe 27 to Tampa Bay or 25 to Buffalo. Somewhere in that range. You're going to see a playoff team probably. It is a wide range because, again, these teams, they can think a lot of different things. You know, it's hard to really tell what they're going to think going into this process, and I don't know all the medicals. I don't know how he's rehabbing. Mm-hmm. But I think, yeah, mid-20s or so is probably the lowest he's going to go.
All right. So, with that in mind, we're going to move on. I do want to talk about the Senior Bowl going on this week. It starts tomorrow, measurements, all that good stuff. We do have a couple of comments real quick from some of our viewers. One of them being famous Amos Stuckey Jr. He says, "Hello, friends," and he wants to let us know that the San Francisco game was fixed.
Yeah, that's right. The NFL told Jimmy Garoppolo to throw the ball behind his head as he's falling down. That's right. They told him to throw the interception at the end of the game. I don't believe that for a minute.
Amos, if you're still watching, if you can emphasize your point a little bit on there, I will put it on the screen, and we can have a quick chat about that. But I'm just glad San Francisco didn't win, and I will go over all of that tonight at 9. And if we talk about it on Wednesday in the Pick'em Show, I'll go over it then. But thank goodness the Rams won, not because I'm a Rams fan or not because I'm anti-San Francisco or nothing. I got a Jeff Garcia chilling upstairs in my room. But I just
want a good game. I just want a good Super Bowl, right?
Let's go Rams. But
I also can't live in a world where Mike Goodpaster gets to celebrate the Super Bowl. I just can't. I can't deal with the possibility of that happening.
Man, I'm gonna go more in depth on this later, but I don't want. I'm already hearing Joe Burrow's the best quarterback in the league and top 3 already. He wins a chip, it's over. We're going to be talking about Hall of Fame and nonsense like that. It's going to get crazy. But I do want to remind you guys that your top sportsbook comparison site is betting.net, and betting.net offers extensive reviews on the best sportsbooks out there. So head on over to betting.net. Give them a little look-see there. Now, as I've said a couple times already, the Senior Bowl is this week. Practices and everything start tomorrow. A lot of the stuff that we really care about will be happening between now and like Thursday or so. Friday, maybe, that's the walkthrough, and then Saturday is the game. The game doesn't really mean as much as the practices, but there is a ton of talent in this Senior Bowl. And for this being a draft that isn't seen as one with a lot of top-end talent, there is no number 1 QB. There is no top number 1 Nick Bosa or Garrett edge rusher. There isn't, a top left tackle that blows your mind away and is a top pick guarantee kind of guy. There's none of that. There's a lot of really good prospects, but there's no quote unquote generational talent. That's been the word being thrown around lately with some of these great prospects. That being said, I think this is actually a pretty talented draft class overall. And even if the top end talent is lacking, I do feel that the depth is there at a lot of different key positions, edge rusher, along the offensive line, in the secondary. I like this. I love the safety talent in this class. It's a little sad with some of the guys who went back, like Battle, but the guys who did come out are really talented. And the Senior Bowl is the big one, right? This is the all-star game that everybody looks forward to. We have the historically Black College Bowl and practice week that already went down. We have the Shrine game.
The Shrine Bowl going on right now.
That's going on right now, or was, or whatever. And the Senior Bowl is a big thing besides the Combine. What is your top storyline for this Senior Bowl this year?
Well, I think everyone's going to lean towards the quarterbacks, but my storyline, the one I really want to watch, is how the Battle of the Trenches play out. Because I think there's some underrated offensive tackles potentially in this class, some guys who I really want to see how they work out. Someone like Andrew Stuber from Michigan has had some concerns with maybe being a little bit stiff. I want to see if we can kind of work that out. Daniel Falele measured in like 6'8", 360 something. He's insane. I want to see if he can stick with some of the faster edge rushers in this class. Also, guys are playing the interior, some like Marquise Hayes from Oklahoma, Cole Strange. These guys, Luke Gadecki, could potentially play tackle. He played tackle at Central Michigan, but probably will kick inside the guard. Even some like Abraham Lucas from Washington State, who kind of flew under the radar so far, had a ton of pass blocking snaps at Washington State in that offense. I want to see how they match up against a pretty good edge class, well, a potentially historically deep edge class with a lot of good interior defensive line talent as well. Guys like Haskell Garrett from Ohio State, someone like Perrin Winfrey, who I'm not as high into some other people. Well, I do think there's a lot of underrated interior defensive line talent here. Not a top-heavy class by any means in terms of the interior defensive line, but there are some good guys in this group that I think could really make a splash. Some like Devontae Wyatt from Georgia, nose tackle Neil Farrell Jr. from LSU. I like those guys quite a lot. I can't wait to see how the battle in the trenches shapes out.
Oh yeah, dude, that's definitely something to keep an eye out for. I'm really looking forward to these one-on-ones. We're going to separate the boys from the men this weekend. Max Mitchell, Darian Kinnard, Jamari Salyer. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and it's the talent on both sides too. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, for me, aside from the quarterbacks, because that's, like you said, that's just too easy. That's just cherry picking. I want to see the wide receivers, and I want to see the defensive backs. I want to see those one-on-ones. I want to see who can get open, who beats the press at receiver. The Lions need receiver help. And if they don't end up addressing that position in the first round, which they very well may not after the success they had with Amon St. Brown this past season, taking him in the fourth round, looking like an absolute steal of a slot receiver. If they don't address that position in the first round, they're going to have to address a position at some point. Maybe in the second round, maybe in the third round. But some of these guys are going to be on their list. And I'm looking at – and the names aren't pretty. Like they're not popping. There's not any superstars, but Jahan Datsun, the wide receiver from Penn State, could very well be the top wide receiver in this game. I think he is. And he will be one of the top receivers taken in this class. But Khalil Shakir, Alec Pierce from Cincinnati, Romeo Dubes from Nevada, Christian.
I'll give you two names to keep an eye on. Keep an eye on Jalen Tolbert from South Alabama, and watch Christian Watson's from North Dakota State. Those two guys, a little bit bigger, a little bit lengthier dudes. I think they're going to cause a lot of havoc against some smaller defense backs, and they're physical guys. I think those two, smaller school dudes, but really have an opportunity to really prove themselves here and probably make a lot of money. Maybe even become day two kind of guys.
You took his name literally. It was right on the tip of my tongue. I was just about to say Christian Watson, the wide receiver from North Dakota State. That was Trey Lance's deep target, and he's a big boy. And I want to temper my expectations when it comes to these small school receivers like Watson from North Dakota State and stuff, because we've seen those receivers put up gaudy stats and maybe have crazy measurements or something like that and not really do anything, or kind of like flame out real quick, and it's ugly. They just can't separate. Their routes aren't crisp enough. They can't catch in traffic. They're big for no reason. Different reasons why they're not quite right once they get to the league. But I'm hopeful that won't be the case with these two guys. And I know Jalen Tolbert is definitely someone who's been getting a lot of love recently, and especially going into this game. So that should be fun. Now, give me one player. I know there's dozens you're going to be watching, focusing on, and checking out. Give me one player on offense that you will be looking at to really see where their stock ends up after the Senior Bowl, because the Senior Bowl can make or break someone's draft stock. It can make you a first-round pick, or it could knock you all the way down to the third day and absolutely disgust you. So who are you watching? Offensive player.
Tough one. There's a lot of good players to choose from. Two guys that kind of jump out to me a little bit. One being Chris Paul. He's going to be more of a guard prospect from Tulsa. Mm-hmm. Tulsa's a couple guys actually on the offensive line who's going to have a chance to maybe get drafted this year. But Chris Paul and me play against lower, lesser competition. You see the flashes, though. And he's got the build to play in the NFL. It's just a little bit of figuring out his true position, because I think he played a lot of tackle in college. He's not going to be able to do that in the NFL. Just seeing how he transitions inside in the one-on-ones, again, against a underrated interior defensive line class. I want to see how he performs. If I had to list one more guy, I'd say Isaiah Likely, tight end from Coastal Carolina, highly productive guy for the Chanticleers. And he's going to be that traditional receiving content and the extra receiver, the big body receiver. Not much of a blocker, but he's expected to be one of the top 3 tight ends in this class. And I think if he doesn't perform like it, he could really plummet, because this is a group that has a bunch of potentially risers at that position.
And for me, I'm going to be focusing on Malik Willis, because he is one of the 5 or 6 quarterbacks in this class that's jockeying for position. And we've talked about this a lot with the quarterbacks. We've had a few shows where we've mentioned them, and he's got a lot of work to do. He's one of those, what's the word I'm looking for?
Dual threat?
No. He's one of those, I'll just say a conversation starter at the position, because he's got the physical talent. He's got a live arm. He can sling it. He's got athleticism. He can make plays. He's a big game, big playmaker. But you also see the inconsistencies. You see the issues with the accuracy. You see the mistakes in coverage, the inability to get through his reads in a timely manner. And in turn, he throws stupid interceptions or makes terrible decisions. So he's going to have to work through some of this stuff. But he is very much in the first-round conversation. This week in practice can separate a guy like him, because after seeing Mahomes and Allen and having Lamar Jackson have the success that he's had, yes, not playoff success, but he's already won an MVP. So I don't care what you want to say about him in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson's talent is undeniable. His ability to play the game and be a dynamic playmaker at the quarterback position is undeniable. Okay, yeah, when running quarterbacks don't win, blah, blah, blah. That can be another conversation for another day. But I want to see what Malik Willis does this week. I think this is something that could either really bolster his stock and push him, not only lock him into a first-round slot, but maybe push him up the board a little bit, because there's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks for different reasons. The Steelers, the Saints, the Lions at the end of the first round.
Maybe the Buccaneers sooner or later.
The Bucks, the Titans. I mean, there's legit like a dozen teams that can take a quarterback in the first round. And if this guy shows out, I mean, there's always teams that will buy the raw talent. That's just a fact.
And there's a lot of teams towards the back end of the first round that could be a perfect spot for him. You mentioned Detroit, Tampa Bay. If Aaron Rodgers demands a trade in Green Bay, there's going to be a lot of teams down the back end of the draft that are going to need guys.
Yo, that's a thing, man. So I want to see what goes down there. Now, on the flip side, what would be, if you had to pick one defensive player that you wanted to see this week, either do well or see how he does against top talent if he didn't play against top talent in college? Who on the defensive side are you watching?
You mentioned the cornerback group. There's a lot of good corners in here I'm really interested in. Tyson Anderson from Toledo and Zion McCollum from Sam Houston State. Those are two guys I'm really curious about. Sam Houston State not being at the FBS level, but Zion McCollum was a big dude. I think he's like 6'2", 6'3", long arms. I think he's going to be a real disruptor. And someone like Tyson Anderson has always been productive as a defensive back and really limited players who have been targeted at him in Toledo. I think he can be a really good player. I just don't know how he'll stack up against some of the greatest competition at the Senior Bowl. But then again, we've already mentioned these receivers aren't necessarily going to be like a top receivers on the board. Jahan Datsun being the best one available. He's probably the 6th or 7th receiver on a lot of boards.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, for me, I've been kind of jumping around, here and there on who I want to really look at defensively. But I'm gonna settle on Logan Hall, the edge rusher, defensive lineman from Houston. Now, Houston isn't a defensive line factory. They're not chugging out top tier talent at that position. That being said, they have had a couple of first round picks in the last few years of the draft. Ed Oliver, the defensive lineman for Buffalo, being one of them. And last year,
Peyton Turner, right?
Yeah. Last year, the Bucs took a edge rusher out of Houston last year. So there's a little something to be said there. But I want to see what Logan Hall does. Another one of those small guys. Houston's not a small school like a Liberty or Northern Iowa or something like that. But let's be honest, Houston's not one of those top tier programs. That's just a matter of fact. Now, they had a good season, and Logan Hall had a great year. But this is something different. So I want to see this is an all-star game. This is the best of the best. I want to see those one-on-ones and see if he really stands out. I think that'll be key for him, because for me, he's hovering in the second round right now, but a good week could really push him up and make him potentially a late first-round pick. Teams are always looking for edge rushers.
There are a couple edge rushers actually in this group that could make the same jump. You mentioned Logan Hall. I'm trying to think who else is there. I think Kingsley Enagbare is going to be there as well, from South Carolina, and
Jermaine Johnson from Florida State.
Yeah, what about the I'm trying to think, from San Diego State? Well, I can't remember his name.
Cam Thomas.
Yeah, that's another one. Like all four or five of those guys are all in the same kind of group where borderline first round picks, a really good combine Senior Bowl could do it for them.
Now, I've had Cam Thomas in my mock draft before I published it, and I always had him somewhere sprinkled in like the mid 20s, late 20s, stuff like that. He put up some really gaudy stats this year, so Cam Thomas is definitely a name to watch. But before we move on, we do have another comment I want to get to, and I want to show some more love to betting.net. But to add on to what famous Amos Stuckey Jr. said, Mark Boo comes out and says people are saying that the 49ers and Rams game was fixed. Now, I've not heard that. Maybe I'm not following the right Twitter accounts.
No, I don't tend to float around in the crowds that speculate about games being fixed and stuff like that. So I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that either. But I'd be curious. And once we get off the air, I am going to look into that and see what goes on.
Although counterpoint would be, if the NFL was fixing games, they never would have had the Bengals beat the Chiefs. So
that's fair, and they probably wouldn't have had the 49ers beat the Packers.
No, probably not.
No one wants to see Jimmy Garoppolo. No one cares about the 49ers being able to run the ball, and Shanahan's not some popular coach around the country. No one gives a damn about San Francisco. They would have had Aaron Rodgers win. It would have been Aaron versus Mahomes in the chip or something like that.
Or Tom Brady beat the Rams. The Rams don't have many fans compared to some of the other league teams out there, because the Rams recently moved. Have Brady and the Bucs go again.
If they were fixing it, it would have been Brady versus Aaron. What it should have been, something real special. But anyway, we'll talk about that, I'm sure, at the 9 o'clock show, and when we do our Pick'em show Wednesdays. But the Grueling Truth is powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding the online casino or sports book that's right for you. So head on over to betting.net. Now, it is Mock Draft Monday, and we're getting into it a little later than I wanted to, which means we're going to have to blow through this. Now, we've done mocks in the past, and I think we did the top 10 at one point. We did like the top 20, I think the last one. Now we're going for the whole shebang-a-bang, all right? I want to do the whole first round, but we got to plow through this. I'm about to put the timer on my phone, so we got 20 seconds per pick or something like that.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
That might be a little much. I want to make a pick. I want to make a 1 or 2 sentence reason why, and then we move on. So let me pull up my stopwatch here. And I already got ads for, like this and vote on this. And I don't want to do none of that. So where are we? Timer, reset, new. Let's go. We'll go 20 seconds to start, and we'll see how that goes. All right.
That was good.
So the top 20 picks have all been set for weeks now since the playoffs started. Now we know what the back end of the first round is looking like. With the Rams with the better record over the Bengals, we're going to have them 32. We're going to have the Bengals 31. Now, last time I started, I had the odds, you had the evens. So I think this time we'll flip it back. You have the odds, I'll take the evens, which means you're on the board, my friend, the Jacksonville Jaguars with the first pick.
All right, well, let's make it easy. I just had a mock draft with this. Aiden Hutchinson goes first overall. The Jacksonville Jaguars find a long-term partner for Josh Allen and just take a really good player and don't risk it on an offensive tackle that might not be worth the pick.
I love it. Didn't even take the whole clock. So the Lions are sitting at number 2 with Aiden Hutchinson off the board. Start the clock. Boom. Detroit Lions would go Kayvon Thibodeau here. The whole time, the rumors have been that they like him. If he and Hutchinson are on the board, they're probably going to go with Kayvon. Elite athleticism, top-notch pass rushing potential. Either way, it's a win. The Houston Texans are on the board with the third pick.
And they're taking Ikem Ekwonu from NC State, the offensive tackle. At worst, you're drafting a pretty high-ranking guard. He's a good mover for the position. Play left tackle really well, really improved in pass protection. And this gives you a pairing with Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. Now you have a right tackle in Ekwonu.
I love that. A nice elite young bookend pairing. That's something special for him. But now, number 4, New York Jets are on the board. And this is an interesting one. Start the clock. Boom. I wasn't expecting. I mean, I guess I should have based on your mock draft, but I wasn't expecting it to land this way. And I don't know if the Jets would actually take Evan Neal 4th overall and deal with another offensive tackle situation. But with Becton being out of favor, that's the route they go. They get to plug Evan Neal in at left tackle. Let's go. New York Giants, 5th.
All right, New York Giants 5th overall. They're taking Derek Stingley Jr., and it's for cap situation. This is assuming that the medicals come back good for him at the combine and everything's cleared like that. But James Bradbury's taken up a huge chunk of your cap. You've given out some very bad contracts in recent years, notably to guys like Kenny Golladay and Bradbury. You got a new front office, new head coach. Let's wipe the slate clean, clear some cap space so they can make their moves. Get rid of James Bradley and bring in Derek Stingley Jr.
All right, here we go. Number 6, the Carolina Panthers are on the board, on the clock, and here we go. I'm gonna mix it up a little bit, and I gave them a quarterback before, and I'm gonna give them a quarterback again. They can probably go a number of different directions, but they need to figure out the quarterback position. I'm gonna go Kenny Pickett, 6th overall, Pittsburgh. Boom. Number 7, from the Chicago Bears, the Giants are on the clock. Who are they going?
Yeah, it could either be George Karlaftis or Charles Cross, the guy that draws the trenches at least somewhere in these top 2 picks. And I'm going to take Charles Cross here. He's battle-proven in pass protection. He's playing in a high-powered octane offense in college, facing a lot of top pass rushers in the SEC. And you cannot bring in a young quarterback to replace Dalen Jones until you have a solid offensive line. The Giants haven't had a good line in 5 or 6 years. It's time to finally fix that.
All right, so the Atlanta Falcons are next on the clock. They are 8th overall. Now, they've got needs at edge rusher. They might even need to take a wide receiver depending on what they do at that position with Ridley. So they could go a few different directions. They could even go quarterback here, but they have to address that edge. I'm going to give them George Karlaftis here. I don't know if I see him at the top 10 pick, but edge rushers rise. Denver Broncos are 9th. They're next.
Yeah, and they're losing Kareem Jackson to free agency this year. He's a safety for them. A really good pairing with Justin Simmons that made their 2 high looks possible. And if you're going to keep running that kind of defense, yeah, you might want to add another corner, but I think Kyle Hampton has to be the pick here. He's the closest thing to a generational type prospect there is in this class in terms of the position he plays, looking like a linebacker, being able to run like a receiver. I'm taking Kyle Hamilton here and getting him off the board. He's not falling outside the top 10.
All right, the New York Jets sitting at number 10. They get this pick from the Seattle Seahawks. And with the first pick, they decided to address the offensive line. This is another team that has needs everywhere. And I think they need to address the defense here. I'm going to go with Ahmad Gardner, the corner from Cincinnati. The top 15 is a lock for that man. They need a cornerback 1, and he's it. The Washington football team sitting at number 11. You're on the clock.
Yeah, and the football team cannot roll into next year with Taylor Heineke at quarterback. We already know he's limited in terms of his capabilities. He's a discount Ryan Fitzpatrick, just in a smaller frame. I don't think he's a long-term answer for them. I don't think they believe he's a long-term answer either. I'm willing to take a shot here. I'm taking Matt Corral. I'm willing to bet that those lower body injuries don't follow him to the NFL and that he can provide some solid play behind a offensive line that hopefully improves in free agency.
All right, so you get Matt Corral at number 11. Hopefully they get their QB1. All right, the Minnesota Vikings, 12th overall pick. Now, Minnesota comes into this draft with a lot of needs on the defensive side. Edge rusher, linebacker, corner, hell, safety. They need a little bit of everything. And there's some good talent left on the board here. I'm going to go with David Ojabo, the edge rusher from Michigan.
Oh, you really did that. I was about to take him for Cleveland.
This is what the NFL draft is, baby. Cock blocks left and right. But now Cleveland's on the board, 13th overall.
Wait, I don't know what I'm doing now. This you've thrown me off for the first time today.
Here we go.
1 second. I'm going to look I'm thinking I know, but I look at the depth chart real quickly. They have a lot of talent. They brought in cornerback in recent years, so I'm not going to go corner, even though there's a bunch of decent defensive backs available. You need a receiver. I'm going to take Jamison Williams here. It's a little bit early for me. I don't love it to pick there, but you can't go in the next year with just Jarvis Landry as being your receiver. It just doesn't make sense. Him and Donovan Peoples-Jones are not good enough. You can't evaluate Baker Mayfield properly when those are your top receiving options.
All right, so here we go. Jamison Williams, first receiver off the board, 13th overall to the Browns. Baltimore is now on the clock, 14th overall. Now, Baltimore is going to be one of those tough teams to figure out. They got a lot of key defensive free agents up front. They could address that. They do have needs on the offensive line, though, and I think that's something they might look to address sooner than later. I'm actually going to give them – I'm going to do it. I'm going to give them Tyler Linderbaum, the center from Iowa. Listen, he starts at center. Center may not be their biggest need, but Linderbaum could potentially be one of the top 10 prospects in this draft. I know he's in your blue chip tier, your tier 1. So this wouldn't be a bad look for him. Plug him in up front. Give some more protection to Lamar.
No, I do really like that pick for them.
Philadelphia, 15th overall, first of 3.
Yeah, they get a lot of draft capital coming up here. I'm going to take Andrew Booth Jr. to start off from Clemson. Steven Nelson is going to be a free agent for them. They have Darius Slay right now. You add Andrew Booth Jr. to your team, you now have 2 corners on the outside to really help your defense out. You're getting older. You need to start replacing some of those parts, and you got more time now to do that.
That's fun. I had Andrew Booth in my mock draft that I posted a few weeks ago. I had him going 19 to them. So a couple picks early, but not a bad pick at all. We know what their secondary needs are. And they have back-to-backs here. So they picked 15th. They also picked 16th. This pick coming from the Indianapolis Colts. And I know their fans are still disgusted. But the Eagles need defense. And I don't think they're going quarterback here. I do think they would go defense. I don't know if it's too early for this based on everything we've seen. I still love him as a prospect. I'm going to go with the Kobe Dean here. Plug him in. They have one of the worst linebacker groups. Stud. I don't care if he's 5'11". He could be a beast. 17th, the Chargers. Sitting pretty.
Yeah, I had them taking edge to pair with Joey Bosa in my mock draft, but I'm going to go a different route this time. I'm having them take Trevor Penning, offensive tackle from Northern Iowa. They had Ryan Bulaga pegged as their starter at right tackle going into this year. He got banged up. He's always been banged up. You cannot count on him going forward. Draft someone to help shore up a pretty good offensive line. That's the only spot they need to fix.
All right, Trevor Penning, Northern Iowa alum, 17th overall. Love it. He's another one I want to see in the Senior Bowl this week, see what goes on there. But this was an interesting one because the Saints are sitting at 18th overall, and they're one of those teams that I was mentioning before that need a quarterback. Do they take a quarterback here? I don't know. I guess it'll depend on what direction they go with their coach and if they're going to compete right now or not. But assuming they don't, they're going to have to address the receiver position. And I think this would be a good spot for Drake London. No matter who's the quarterback, whether they bring back Jameis and what's his face? Jesus.
Trevor Siemian and Taysom Hill and that whole
Trevor
crew.
Siemian and Taysom Hill, my dear Lord. Yes, if they bring these clowns back, they're going to need someone who can catch the ball in traffic. Drake London does that better than anybody in the class. The Eagles are 19th, and they're on the clock.
I was thinking about taking a receiver here, but you took Drake London, and that basically eliminated it for me. They would love to get Tyler Linderbaum as well, especially if Jason Kelce retires. He's not on the board, though. So I'm going to go with an edge rusher. I took Travon Walker in my mock draft. I'm going to flip pace here. I'm going to go with Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State. This is probably high for him, but I've got some pretty trusted sources who really do like him quite a bit, and I trust their judgment. Having seen him play in the ACC this year, he's definitely more athletic than you would think, and I do like his bend off the edge. I think he's got a good amount of power as well. It just comes down to refining some of those pass rush moves.
All right, Jermaine Johnson, edge rusher from Florida State, one of the studs in this Senior Bowl that we're going to get to watch this week. I'm excited. Now, here we go. Pittsburgh Steelers sitting at number 20. Now, am I going to disgust you with the selection, or are you going to be happy? We'll have to see. This is another team that can go quarterback, but they seem to be content to maybe go with Mason Rudolph and see what happens moving forward. So I'm not going to go quarterback, but I am going to address the offense. This might be a little early for them, but I don't care. They need help up front. I'm going to go Kenyon Green, offensive tackle, offensive guard from Texas A&M. Plug him in up front. Give whoever is the quarterback a fighting chance. And with that, the New England Patriots 21st are on the clock.
I have absolutely no complaints about you taking Kenyon Green, by the way. I love it.
Awesome.
Exactly what I wanted to hear.
Good. Thanks.
New England, you got J.C. Jackson. You don't know if you're going to have him long-term, though. I think he's going to be a free agent after this year.
Yes.
And he's on a very cheap contract. He was a restricted free agent last year. He's not making a lot of money. He's going to want a huge raise. And if you're New England, I don't know if you're going to be able to pay for that. So I'm taking Roger McCreary from Auburn. Dude's really good in zone. He's great in man coverage. He's amazing in man coverage, actually. Really good in the press as well. Can do everything you need him to do. So I'm taking McCreary there.
I'm sorry, taking
Roger McCreary.
Roger McCreary. Okay. Let me just go. I got to put that name there. I was not expecting that. I don't know why I wasn't expecting that, but here we go. Roger McCreary, corner for Auburn. Boom. 21st overall. All right. And with that, the Raiders are on the clock. And they just hired their new head coach. They're bringing in Josh McDaniels over from New England. And they're bringing over one of the New England front office staff guys to be their general manager. So I think they're going to do – I think it'd be safe to do what New England might do, which means probably avoid taking a receiver, probably try to bolster either the front seven on defense or bolster the offensive line. And they definitely need offensive line help because they tore it down this past offseason and it didn't really work out. I'm going to give them Bernard Raymond, offensive lineman, tackle guard from Central Michigan. They can plug him in at any position up front except center pretty much. And they need to rebuild that offensive line. They got good weapons. Now they need to build it up front. As Mike would say, the line is where you win chips. You got to win up front to win games. So that's where they go. Arizona Cardinals, 23rd overall on the clock. Here.
Yeah, you got a lot of potential here. You can take some of the guys who are kind of back end of the first round edge rushers or corners, but I'm going to go receiver here. It's just the question of who. I'm kind of split between Chris Olave and Trayvon Burks. Mm-hmm. I don't love Chris Olave as a lock for a first round pick, but I do like him fitting in Arizona, so I'm going to send him to the Cardinals. I think he's got a good combination of route running and speed. I think it's underrated to damage guys at all levels of the secondary, so I'm taking him at 23rd.
Olave, okay. I like it. But now, the Dallas Cowboys sit at 24th overall. Now, Dallas comes in. They're a team that needs defensive help as well. Edge rusher along the defensive line, defensive back. Okay, they need it all. They got some free agent stuff to figure out. So they'll have to – what they do in free agency will dictate this pick. But I'm going to give him Trent McDuffie, corner from Washington. He can play inside. He can play outside. He's one of the best corners in this class. He doesn't have the prototype size, but he's a hell of an athlete. And he only allowed 16 receptions on 36 targets this year. He'll plug right in as a starter, inside or out, and they'll be great for it. The Buffalo Bills, 25th overall, are on the clock.
Yeah, and it's early for this guy. I'll fully admit it. I expect him to be a top of the second round kind of pick, but I'm taking Zion Johnson, guard from Boston College. the Buffalo Bills are not built to actually succeed in the climate they play in. They can't run the ball very well in cold weather. They don't have a great interior offensive line. And you need to start addressing that. Again, it's early for Zion Johnson, but considering it's towards the back end of the first round, I'm okay with splurging for a guard.
All right, there you go. Build it up front. Keep that theme going with some of these teams in the second half of the first round. The Tennessee Titans are on the board, and I know at 26 overall, my buddy Greg would love nothing more than a quarterback here. Ryan Tannehill is the reason this team is not in the Super Bowl, because they could have very well won that game. They could have very well won this past game against the Chiefs and made it all the way to the chip. They had everything else in place, including my coach of the year. But I don't know how I feel about going quarterback here. I want to see what the Senior Bowl brings us. I don't trust any of them right now outside of Pickett and Corral. So I think they're going to go elsewhere. I think they could stand to address linebacker. And the best one on the board is Devin Lloyd. I had a mock there in my mock a few weeks ago. There's no reason to change it. Playmaker at the position. Let's go. 27 overall, Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, it's hard to pick for them because I have no idea if Tom Brady is going to play next year or not. If he's not, I probably would pick one of the quarterbacks, but I don't really know. They have some holes opening up with Ndamukong Suh leaving on the defensive line, and two of their starters, I think Ryan Jensen and one of their guards, Alex Kapka, leaving on the offensive line. I just don't like the value for any of the guys listed at those spots right now. So I'm going to stick with what they kind of built this team to begin with. I'm going to stick with the offense and the receivers, the either corner or receiver in the spot. And someone like Treylon Burks, the combination he has of speed and size, it's too alluring to pass up at 27th overall.
All right. Treylon Burks, wide receiver, Arkansas, 27th to the Bucks. Green Bay's on the board at 28th overall. I'm on the clock. Now, they need an edge rusher. Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith both have 1 year left on their current deals. Zadarius Smith might be released. I have them taking Drake Johnson in my mock a few weeks ago. But the way the board's fallen, I don't think they could afford to pass up on Garrett Wilson, wide receiver from Ohio State. I would have loved for him to fall to my Lions later on at 32, but Green Bay also has a lot of needs at receiver. Everybody at the position's a free agent on their team, and they might even cut Randall Cobb because he's making over $9 million, and Randall Cobb's not worth that right now. Maybe cut that by like 70%, and he can stay on the team. But they need a wide receiver with or without Ron. They need to do something at the position. I'll go Garrett Wilson, wide receiver, Ohio State. And now Miami is on the board with the 29th pick. They got this from San Francisco.
Miami is such a hard team to draft for because they have a bunch of needs and they just don't have the means to fill them. They need help along the offensive line desperately. So at a position like this, I can see them reaching for someone like a Petit Prieur or for a Daniel Falele, who I think is more likely at this point. Looking at the receiver board, there's not really great receivers left either. I hear the timer going off. I'm trying to really put something together here. I'm going to have them reach for Daniel Falele. It is a reach, admittedly. But they loved having their big offensive lineman down there in Miami. That's how they built that offensive front. It hasn't worked out so far. But someone like Falele, a mountain of human, can really help them out.
I will say that's the first one I want to say yuck to.
It is a reach. It is a reach. I admit that. I just couldn't figure anything out very quickly to plug in there. It's a tough team to pick for.
Yo, you got to think on your feet in these mock drafts, man. Especially when you're ping-ponging it with someone like me. Throw a wrench in your plans. But Kansas City is on the board after that for Lele, offensive tackle from Minnesota, 29th. So Kansas City needs help on defense. They need help at receiver. They could really address either at this point, and there's some really good talent on the board. I'm going to give him Kaiir Elam, the corner from Florida. I don't know if he's going to be a first-round pick the way things have been going, but the talent is there. The athleticism is there. And he fills a huge need at the position. Elam, corner, Florida, 30th overall. And now we're down to the final two, the Cincinnati Bengals and the LA Rams. So the Bengals are sitting at 31 in this mock. And who are they going?
I'm going to hear from Mike Goodpaster. I'll make a bad pick here. But it's kind of tough because the offensive lineman that I would like to address this spot with, they're all gone. All the interior guys, all the tackles, I don't want any of them right now that are on the board. That leaves the defensive side of the ball. And you already have a pretty good defensive set going for you. I just got to grab a versatile defender, right? I mean, that's probably the best pick. Grab someone who's versatile. And frankly, if you want a versatile defender, Daxton Hill, safety from Michigan, playing the slot and play towards the line of scrimmage. Either him or Brisker at this point. I'm going Daxton Hill. Like I said, just a versatile player that can maybe replace one of these safeties if you let them go in free agency or you cut them and save some money. So That's my pick. I don't love it, but it'll fit.
All right, Cincinnati, Datsun Hill, safety from Michigan, 31st overall. And here we go, the final pick in the first round, the final pick in our mock draft. Before I give it to you guys, I just want to remind you, betting.net offers expert and user reviews for every online sportsbook and casino in your state. So find the best place to bet for you. Head on over to betting.net. And now, with the final pick in the first round, the Detroit Lions select Jahan Datsun, wide receiver from Penn State. I thought real hard about going quarterback here. And I thought, maybe one of these defensive linemen plug in, maybe a Drake Jackson or Travon Walker from Georgia. But nah, we need a receiver. Datsun would be a nice outside threat. With him on the outside, Hawkinson and St. Brown in the middle of the field, Swift out of the backfield, that could be something real special. And I think he's a poor man's Deshaun Jackson in terms of what kind of a downfield threat he can be when he's on with his combination of speed and body control. So there it is. There you have it, folks. First round done, and we did it, I feel like, in record time. I'm very pleased.
Yes. Got kind of ugly on my part towards the end of the first round. I'm looking back.
That's what happens when you're on the clock, man. All right? I thought when the buzzer buzzed a few times, I was going to run up to the podium. But I didn't do that this time. Maybe next time.
Yeah. But we covered a lot of topics today. We got through a lot of stuff.
We did. We definitely did. And I want to thank you guys, whoever's been watching. I want to thank you guys for staying with us and tuning in. I want to have you guys give us a like, a follow. We are both on Instagram. Well, I'm on Instagram. We are both on Twitter. What's your handle, Sam?
Yeah, my handle is Sam_Teats33. You can find me there. I have a link there to my newsletter where I post all this draft content, everything we talked about today, my big board, my mock draft. You can find it all right there.
All right. And I am at DB Talking Sports. D as in Dan, B as in Bob. I'm on Twitter. We're on Instagram. Give us a like, give us a follow. Hit us up on the DMs. We will respond. We'll keep it G-rated. We'll talk sports, whatever questions you got. And don't be afraid, folks, to reach out. Let us know if there's any topics you want us to cover every week, any players you want us to talk about, any features you want us to add to the show. We're open to all suggestions. And, I think that's it, unless you got any final thoughts for this one.
No, I think we covered everything.
All right. Well, enjoy the Senior Bowl. This is going to be a fun week. We're going to have to share our notes next week before our show. And won't be a mock draft Monday, but it's going to be a good one. And last one, betting.net finds the best promotions, offers, and bonus codes so you don't have to. Head over to their website now to take advantage of things like free bets and matching deposits. Betting.net. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm Dan Kornhauser for Sam Teats. Have a great night. Enjoy the week. Enjoy the Senior Bowl. We'll see you guys later.